So I hope I can be heard properly. I'm out here in a, let's see if you could guess where I am at. But we're out here and the connection is limited, so hopefully I don't get interrupted over here. So a short thought. The title of the class is Defund the Police. Now, I want to say outright that I am a huge supporter and wish the police who risk their lives, put their lives on the line to keep us safe. And so my full backing and prayers that they should be safe, they should stay safe, they should be able to protect themselves, their families, and protect us and protect society. But nevertheless, the title of the class is Defund Police, ? So I want to give an interesting thought upon that there is a time where there is no police. And I want to sort of share this by way of introduction that related to the parsha that we learned and read yesterday. We read the parsha which begins where God says, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sharecha. You should place judges and policemen, or those who enforce justice, at all your gates. So, first and foremost, the parsha talks about leadership, moral leadership, justice. That's a big theme of the Torah portion, because as we're entering into Israel, we're in the desert, God is making it very clear in the Torah that only a society that has moral leadership can, and justice, and so on, and moral justice, can society survive. That's a given, and that's simple. The Torah goes on to talk about bribery and so on. You know, it's kind of sad today that whenever a judge rules in our country over here, and we don't like the ruling, we right away want to find out who appointed the judge and so on. And justice should be beyond that. Justice should not be biased. Yes, we're human beings, but within the sort of perfection of that we can reach, justice shall be blind, and justice shall be in accordance to what's right. And if you, of course, you're a Torah judge, it should be according to the guidance of Torah. If you're a judge in this country, it should follow the Constitution, and so on. That's what justice and judges should be. Okay, getting past that. Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sharecha. You should have judges, and you should have shotrim. Now, I mentioned about defund the police. You know, there's an interesting prophecy from Isaiah, and it made it into our prayers, or the daily prayers, 3 times a day. The Torah says, Shoftim v'shotrim, judges, and a shoter. A shoter is usually translated as a policeman, or someone who enforces the judge's rules, and so on, and so on. You should have at all your gates. But yet, Isaiah, when he talks about the future, the days to come, the prophecy of the Messianic era, where society, mankind has reached a level of perfection, that only says, V'ashiva shoftayich kareshona, I will return your judges as in the past, to have just judges, to have honest judges, and so on. But it does not, and we say this in the davening 3 times a day in the prayers. We say, Hashiva shoftayich kareshona, please God, return your judges. Your judges meaning judges who have fear of God and judge accordingly. As in the beginning of the days of when we went into Israel and so on, under Moses, etc. But it leaves out the shoter, it leaves out the police. So this is the thought I want to share. The thought I want to share, which is based on what says in our holy books, is like this. You know, often the Baal Shem Tov tells us that anything that happens around us is a lesson for us to learn. It's a lesson in life. And a lot of times, society, the things that happen, is a lesson. Now, you could take that lesson in a negative sense, you could take that lesson in the positive sense. Of course, we're supposed to take it in the positive sense. As we get closer to the time when the Messianic era will be fulfilled, when we only need judges and not policemen, why? Why would we not need policemen? Because we only need a judge to tell us what is right. But we don't need the police to enforce it, because society will reach a level that as soon as we know it's right, we don't need to be told, we don't need to be enforced, we don't need to be threatened, we don't need to be punished, we don't need to be arm twisted in order to do what the judge says, because we want to. And that's why when Isaiah says, Vashiva sheftayach karishayna, he leaves out the policeman. Because the ultimate place where society should reach is where you don't need a policeman. And perhaps on a deeper level, the defund the police movement is a message from Hashem. Of course, in today's day and age, we need the police. We need the police very much so, because we need to enforce justice. We need to enforce safety and security and so on. And there's no greater respect that the police deserve from us and support and so on. But the negative defund the police, which is a negative movement, a harmful movement, is perhaps a message that we get to the place where there's a positive defund the police, meaning that society, our education of our children, our connecting them to God, connecting them that there's a higher power, there's somebody who, there's absolute right and wrong, there's someone who knows what we're doing and watches us, there's reward and punishment, there's heaven, and so on. When we educate our children and ourselves, then at that point, police are not needed, because society has been transformed. Lest you say this is a pipe dream, this is what our prophets foretell, that sooner or later society will come to that place. It's up to us to get there sooner. So, interestingly enough, in the books of Torah and Chassidus, it talks about the concept of shoftim, judges, and shotrim, enforcers even within ourselves personally. Each one of us has to have a judge before we do something. We have to make sure it's aligned. We have to be the judge and say, is this right, this is wrong? And we have to have that value system and principles and guidance. And for us, it comes from the Torah to know what's right and what's wrong. And then we have to have the shoter within us. We have to have the policeman who directs us to be disciplined, that even when we don't want to, or even when we, it benefits us on a sort of gratification level, and so on. We're jealous of someone else, so we allow ourselves to say, whatever the logics, the reasons we give ourselves for something not doing the right thing, we need to have our own personal policeman. But the ultimate goal is to reach a place that we only need the shofet within ourselves. We don't need the shoter, because we have refined ourselves and sensitized ourselves that if it's right, that's all we want to do. So that's a lofty level, but it's expected, and it is promised to us that sooner or later we shall and we will get there. It reminds me of a story. I believe I shared this story once before. I remember our principal, someone who I highly respected. At the time I was in South Africa. Spent 2 years there. The Rebbe sent us there to help out the community. It was like sort of a spiritual Peace Corps type of work and so on. And the principal there of the high school was really a very special individual. Came back and he said, he was at a meeting of educators, and they were talking about a given problem that the kids were disrupting from other classes when they were either at break or being sent out. They would open the doors, disrupt the classes, and the solution that they came up at this meeting was that they should put locks on the doors. And this principal was disappointed. He says, our job is not just to put a lock so the kid can't open the door. Our job is to transform the child, that they have the proper respect for the class that's going on, that they don't want to interrupt. That's the goal of education. And so too today, the goal of education, both of our kids and of our children, is not just to give them a career, to discipline them so that they're afraid not to listen, or so on. The real goal of education is to develop the character of our children, fine character, to bring them to a place where they understand and they want to do what's right. They know how to differentiate. They have the strong guideposts. We all sometimes sort of mess up, but at least first and foremost, we have to educate our kinderlach, our dear children, to know what's right, to know what is expected of us, what's the purpose, what's the goal, to do more mitzvahs, to be kind, to pray, to reach out to Hashem, and so on and so forth. And that's really why perhaps there is this defund the police. It's just a reminder that it's not about defunding the police. It's about reaching a place where a society, in a good community, when we come to, you come to synagogue, right? For the most part, you don't need a policeman there. You need, unfortunately, a policeman to protect from outside criminals and threats and security threats. But within a healthy, refined, loving community, you don't need that. People there are, for the most part, there to look after each other, to care for each other. So that is why in the Messianic era, it says, I will return your judges, but it does not say that I will return your policemen. Oh, so that's a short thought. Maybe you guess where I am right now. And I'll give you a hint. Once I give you that hint, I think many of you will guess. This is like one of my favorite childhood spots where I grew up. So if you guess, you're going to get a thumbs up. Anyway, have a fantastic week. It's the month of Elul. We just entered the last month right before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Day of Judgment. We want to come not just with a shopping list, God give me this, give me that, but we want to come with some extra merits. Do an extra mitzvah as we enter the month of Elul. And as the Hasidic, as the Alter Rebbe teaches us, the king is in the field. It's a special time where we can reach out to God. Start small even, a little extra mitzvah, a little extra tzedakah. Come to the synagogue if you don't usually come. Do a little prayer. Even pray at home if you don't usually pray. There's so many good things you could do. And have some extra credit. And connect a little, get a little closer as we prepare for Rosh Hashanah. Have a fantastic, wonderful, amazing week.